Heyo, welcome back to the Undrafted and Unqualified Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Anthony, here by myself this week. As we mentioned last week, Vinny's going to take a little bit off, but I'm going to keep doing these podcasts, get them out each week to you guys. So don't worry, we'll still get some pods out for you guys, even if it's just me. Maybe I'll get a couple guests on if I can as well throughout the time we're without Vinny. But yes, to start off today, talking about the Super Bowl, really disappointing as a Patriots fan. Tough loss, but got to give it to the Seahawks. They played a great game. Defense looked amazing. So it's real tough to beat a team like that when the O-line's not holding up. Drake May, honestly, his shoulder looked a little hurt. His throws were really inaccurate. So it was just a rough game for the Patriots, besides that one drive with the Mac Hollins touchdown. But I have high hopes for the next few years. A lot of the guys are returning and everything, but all flowers got to go to the Seahawks. Ken Walker and the defense were just dominant. Ken Walker, man, I think he's going to get a bag, and we'll see where he goes. It'll be exciting for fantasy football, that's for sure. I think he does want to stay, so factor that in a little bit. He does want to stay in Seattle, but it really feels like he should get the bulk of the work moving forward after Charbonnet went down. He's been unbelievable. So Super Bowl MVP and everything as well. But today, there's really not a lot of news, so it might be a little bit of a quicker episode. We're going to keep going with the positions, the top 10s for each position. So today we're going to do the wide receivers. So without further ado, we'll just get right into that with the top 10 wide receivers. And we'll go from there. Coming in at number 1, by 4 points, we have Puka Nacua, who just had an unbelievable season. He only played 15 games and had one game where he left injured early and still finishes the number 1 receiver overall. There's not much to say about Puka. It was a magical season for him. Matthew Stafford, MVP, and he's throwing him the ball, so you gotta love it. I think with Stafford confirming he'll be back, he confirmed that when he was receiving his award. I think Puka's got to go somewhere in the top 3, the 101 maybe, the 102, 103, somewhere around there. I have no problem taking him that high. 101 especially too. Everybody's talking about the biggest concern for him has been always kind of the injuries and what's it going to be like with Stafford, but we've already now confirmed Stafford will be back. So you got to love Puka. I just don't know what else there is to say. PPR, he's a machine. Devontae Adams, we'll see what happens. Regardless, it could just open stuff up for Puka, and be better for the offense as we saw with this season. So I kind of hope Devontae goes back for Puka's sake. But Puka, unbelievable season, very well-deserved wide receiver 1 overall. And it'll be exciting to see how early he goes, if he goes to 101 or not next year. Wide receiver 2 on the year, 4 points behind him, Jackson Smith-Njigba, the offensive player of the year. Also, what a season for him. We're like, oh, what's the deal going to be with him this year? Sam Darnold's coming over, but was it one-year magic with Kevin O'Connell out in Minnesota? But he kind of denied those allegations. He looked great, and sure enough, Sam Darnold is a Super Bowl champion. So I think Jackson Smith-Njigba's got to go in the top 3 as well next year. Maybe 4, if you want to throw in maybe a Jamar Chase, maybe a Puka, and then a running back. So you take JSN 4, but he can't really go lower than that. He was just too good. He was great for PPR this year. One dud, which was against, I think, the Vikings in Week 13, where he only had 4 points, but they were just a really, really good defense against wide receivers as a whole on the season. So can't really fault him too much for that, but these two guys, Puka and JSN, were in a world of their own. They're going to be early picks in the first round next year. You can't go wrong with either one. Darnold throwing to JSN, we know that's a connection now. Stafford throwing to Puka, same thing. So regardless of who the offensive coordinator is for the Seahawks, I still think it's going to be the JSN show, and I'm going to be all in on him again next year. Not much to say about these two guys. About 45 points lower is the wide receiver 3, and that guy is Amon-Ra St. Brown. It was another great year for him. I think he's finished as wide receiver 3 like 3 straight years, something like that. He's going to be unbelievable again. I think he's surefire first round pick. They brought in Drew Petzing as their offensive coordinator there in Detroit. So I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens to the offense as a whole. I know he definitely likes targeting the tight end, but Laporta is not, he's not Trey McBride. So I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to have a very similar role to what he had this year and the past few years. He feels like a very, very safe wide receiver one, year in, year out. And this team needs him. This team needs him. They need to go back to the playoffs after a really disappointing season this year. So, yeah, I'm going to like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he should be a mid to back end first round pick next year, if I'm being honest. It's just, this guy's unbelievable for PPR as well. And we're noticing a trend here. The guys in PPR who are finishing these top three so far, right, they're all getting a ton of targets, ton of receptions. And, there are touchdowns to come too when that happens. But a lot of these guys can really sustain a high floor too when we're talking about this. And they're on good offenses, these three guys so far. That's a trend we'll notice as well, right? We're not going to have anybody in the top 10 from the Patriots, for example. I know they were a great offense this year, but you're not going to have any in the top 10 from there. The Giants, I'll mention a name for the Giants later, but nobody in the top 10 for them. The Panthers, nobody in the top 10 for them. So just to name a couple teams there that aren't top 10, like top end teams, they're not going to have those guys in the top 10. It's just not going to work that way. And targets really do predict, success when it comes to PPR for fantasy wide receivers, as we're seeing. And that trend's going to continue as we get to the wide receiver 4 on the season, George Pickens. Unbelievable season from Pickens. I mean, we're talking about him as a value of the year right there. He's going in the 5th round and finishes at the wide receiver 4 above his running mate CeeDee Lamb. And he was just from the get-go. I mean, week 1 was down, and it's like, ooh, what's he going to look like on this offense? But we talked him up all offseason, Vinny and I. We talked about the Cowboys, how you want pieces of the Cowboys because that defense is terrible. Sure enough, they remained terrible all year, and George Pickens benefited heavily. He got targeted a lot of receptions, and he's an end zone guy too. And Dak seemed to have a great connection with him. Next year is going to be interesting for Pickens. I think for fantasy, his best situation is to stay in Dallas. It seems like they're going to franchise tag him. That's kind of the rumor on the street right now. But with that, they still may entertain some trades. So I think that'll be really interesting to see what they do there, if they're going to trade him, if they're going to pay him. We know Jerry Jones is very stingy when paying his star players. I mean, it even came to the point they traded away Micah Parsons, which is unbelievable. But George Pickens had a great year. It cannot be said enough. I mean, I'm pretty sure he had only 3 games in the single digits. Yeah, he was just unbelievable. With CD and without CD, he was still really, really good. So, yeah, if you had Pickens on your team, you made a great pick and you thrived off of that. So, yeah, hopefully he stays in Dallas. It feels like next year, if he stays in Dallas, he could be a 2nd round pick, which is crazy to say for George Pickens. But yeah, I think him and CeeDee Lamb should be first 2 round picks next year as long as they both stay in Dallas. If he leaves Dallas, we'll have that conversation when we get there. But for now, looking at it as is, Pickens is in a great spot. If he stays in Dallas, it's going to be another great year for him. Probably a little bit of a fall off from top 4, but I think he could finish top 12 again pretty easily with Dak Prescott. Number 5, almost tying George Pickens, it looks like. Jamar Chase. I mean, this guy, it was like get off the train as early as you can. There were duds after duds, and then Flacco comes in and he looks unbelievable again. I mean, it was unreal. A little stretch there with Flacco, it was unreal. And then Burrow comes back and he's doing what he does best. I think Jamar Chase has a case to be the number 1 pick next year. There's not much to say here. As long as Burrow's there, as long as Burrow doesn't, say he's unhappy and retires like he's been saying he's unhappy, I think Jamar Chase could be the 1-on-1, and I wouldn't fault you for it. I probably lean Puka, honestly. But I think it's going to be interesting when we do our rankings in the offseason. It's going to be interesting because this is going to be a conversation. What do you do with Puka, Jamar Chase, JSN? I think those are the top three, and how do you rank them? If I were to give you an answer off rip, I'd say Puka, Jamar Chase, JSN in that order. But either way, you could go all three of them. You could do whatever you want with the three of them. But Jamar Chase is locked in wide receiver one. We were getting off him. We were saying, hey, it's not going to work. It's not going to work with Jake Browning. Sure enough, Flacco comes in and it works out just fine for him. And then Burrow's healthy again. This is a perfect example of, so it's the quarterback situation. Trust the talent in the wide receiver. Trust the wide receiver talent here. Screw the quarterback play. Worked out. He's still the wide receiver 5 on the year. In some cases, it's not going to work out that way. Justin Jefferson, unfortunately, didn't have a great year, and he couldn't overcome that bad quarterback play. But Jamar Chase, on the other hand, did, and then he got better quarterback play, and it worked out very well for him. So Jamar Chase, surefire top 3 wide receiver next year, in my opinion, and I think, it's historic what he's done so far through his career. He's topping numbers left and right, like top 5 in this category, top 3 in that category. So Jamar Chase will be interesting to see if he's going to go one-on-one again, if he's going to go close there. But yeah, I think regardless, you can't go wrong with that pick. Wide receiver 6, about 20 points less than Jamar Chase. Now this is a fun one. This is awesome. Chris Olave comes in at number 6. I mean, he played all 16 games. That was a big concern for him, right? The concussions. Is he going to play? Is he going to have to retire early because of all the concussions? I mean, 16 games for him, and he is playing very well. Very well the whole season, getting tons of targets. And then he drops 20, 36, and 25 in the playoffs. And it's just, you look at Chris Olave, it's like, where did this come from? He might be a better value than George Pickens. He was going after him. He was going wide receiver 30s, something like that. It was crazy late for how low Chris Olave was going. Even with the injury concerns and everything, I think it just boils down to you got to trust the talent. And, we started the year with, what was it, Spencer Rattler, I think, and then they transitioned to Tyler Shuck, and it was better with Shuck than it was with Rattler, but he was still sustainable. He was still a wide receiver 2, all with Spencer Rattler. So it's crazy to say, but Chris Olave seems like he should be a round 2 pick next year. I mean, if you're getting the target share he's getting, unless they bring in some names to run the wide receiver with them, they didn't have Kamara this year really, and he was injured, but even when he was out there, he wasn't doing anything. So everything was going to Chris Olave. Juwan Johnson seemed like the number 2 for a while. Devon Vele had a stint where he was a clear wide receiver 2 and had some fantasy value, but Tyler Shuck is providing value to this offense for 2 guys, and Chris Olave was the one, regardless of who the number 2 was, whether it was Vele or Juwan Johnson. So Chris Olave is going to be, it's an awesome story. I mean, it's an awesome story for him to be, concussed. It's a tough year starting in the NFL for him, and sure enough, he finishes at wide receiver 6 overall this year. I mean, you just got to love it. Should be a round 2 pick next year, and Shuck should be sticking around. So with that in mind, it could be another great year for Chris Olave as potentially another top 12 wide receiver. The wide receiver 7, which is now about 45 points lower than Olave and about 120 points lower than Jackson Smith and Jigba. So 5 spots lower. I mean, this is just to say Puka and JSN were in a tier of their own this year. The wide receiver 7 is 140 spots lower than these guys. Nico Collins comes in at the wide receiver 7. It was a pretty rough start to the year. Nothing great. You're like, okay, some of these games are good. Some of these games are really just okay. You miss a game. Yeah, he missed only 1 game. And then towards the end of the year, it starts to look good. He had a stint with Davis Mills. It was looking good. Last 2 weeks were not. It was a little bit of a disappointing year for Nico. Even finishing as the wide receiver 7, it felt like the quarterback play, it was just they were missing him. And it would be like 3 for 70 something and no touchdowns. It's like, okay, 5 targets. Okay, like what are we doing? The offense just felt really stale in Houston this year. CJ Stroud didn't look too good, but I mean, it'll be interesting to see what do they do next year. Stroud, I assume, comes back. I assume they aren't going to write him off just after one bad playoff game. I think they got to bring Stroud back, and hopefully he'll hyper target Nico Collins again. Honestly, I want to say here that he can benefit from a true wide receiver too on the other side. I mean, it helped a little bit when Jaden Higgins started playing well, but without Diggs, without Tank Dell, it feels like he was missing something there. I mean, he was getting hyper targeted though, so maybe the lingering injuries we could chalk up a little bit to why he was so wishy washy this year. But it was a little bit of a disappointing year for Nico Collins. Regardless, he should be a top 12 wide receiver again next year. The talent is there. He's just too good of a player. He still finished as the wide receiver 7 despite the feeling that it was a bad year. So yeah, as much as I'm trashing him right now, he should still be a surefire wide receiver 1 next year, top 12 guy. First 2 rounds, absolutely. So nothing changes much there at all. It seems like a lot of the guys so far haven't changed too much. You know, you're taking them where they've been going. Besides Olave, Pickens, you're taking them higher. But all these guys so far feel like you're taking them top 2 rounds. Wide receiver 8. Wow, in only 14 games, Davante Adams. And I wrote him off. I did. I wrote him off. I said, I just don't know if he's going to do it. He's now a wide receiver 2. He's never been a wide receiver 2. He's changing teams at the age of, I think it was 32 years old, something like that. So it's an old age for him to change teams, but he got peppered with touchdowns. I think he's going to be great again with Matthew Stafford. It seems like the offense is planning to run it back next year. I'm hoping he stays there because that'll be great for Puka. That'll be great for Stafford. That'll be great for the Rams for fantasy purposes. But Davante Adams, I think the touchdown regression is going to be a talk, regardless of where he is, whether he stays with Stafford or not. The touchdown regression will be a talk this offseason. We'll see what they end up saying, what they end up deciding, where they go. But Davante Adams feels like the first guy to fall out of the top 2 rounds of these wide receivers so far. I feel like he should be more of a 2-3 kind of guy, maybe at the turn there. But I am going to worry about the age, the touchdown regression. We got to see the situation too. Do they bring in a rookie and the rookie can start getting some reps as well, and that might eat into Davante Adams a little bit. I don't know. I don't think it would. I really don't think it would, but it's just something to consider. I think there's a lot of possibilities here. Davante Adams is going to be one of the most interesting guys to draft next season. I think round 2, round 3 is probably really fair to say for him. I mean, he's a touchdown machine, always has been. So it's not like an outlier year where he's getting a lot of touchdowns and you're like, oh, well, I don't know. So that is one thing. I think he'll be just fine. But I don't want to put him too high either. And, you know, he falls off in the touchdown department. Number 9, wide receiver 9. A.J. Brown. Wow. What a turnaround for A.J. Brown, right? Awful start to the year. Between weeks 1 and 7, he had a 22-point game, a 28-point game, a 14-point game, and 4 single-digit games. He misses a game, goes to the bye, stinker with 3 points, 11 points, and that's when it's like, all right, this is a squeaky wheel here. And he looked great after that. He looked like he returned to form. The Eagles' offense was weird. You know, we talked about just how Barkley could have regression, how A.J. Brown, we talked in the offseason, A.J. Brown was a my guy for Vinny. So he was getting drafted around 9, finished at 9. Doesn't really translate for a my guy to be, you know, I hit that dart throw, you know. But A.J. Brown, it was a successful end of the season, and you got to almost anticipate this carries over a little bit. They fired their offensive coordinator. They were not happy with how the offense worked this year. First round exit. So when considering all things there, A.J. Brown could get traded too. But if he stays, I think he's going to demand targets, and I think it could be a very good year for A.J. Brown. He's almost a surefire round 2 pick in my opinion. he's going to be right around that spot for me, I'm sure, when it comes down to it. But A.J. Brown's going to be a great player next year wherever he goes. He's 28 years old, so he's starting to get to the age where it's like, what do we do with him? What do we do? So situation depends a lot. If he goes to the Patriots, for example, or back to the Titans, two places I've seen him to get rumored to get traded to. If he goes to the Patriots, it'll be interesting. Drake May has never hyper targeted a guy so far in his tenure, and that included with Stephon Diggs this year. So I think he dropped down a little bit for me. If he were to go to the Titans, what's Cam Ward? We don't know yet. We don't know. And hopefully bringing in Brian Daboll as their offensive coordinator would be great. But I don't know if I would trust A.J. Brown leaving the Eagles. I think I would feel better with him staying there. And they have a new offensive coordinator. I think Jalen Hurts is going to get him the ball. And I think they're going to hopefully fix the offense. I mean, we've seen them be such a successful offense already. So we'll see, but the end of the year was encouraging for A.J. Brown going into next year, where I think you can still feel very comfortable taking him as a round 2 pick. But yeah, lot to see what happens when the offseason hits there. Wide receiver 10, to round it out, Courtland Sutton. He played 16 games, played all of them, and there were so many ups and downs. It felt like it wasn't a great year. This is another one where it almost feels like with Nico Collins too, where it just felt bad. It kind of felt bad, but sure enough, he was a wide receiver 10, and there were a lot of guys. I mean, if we look at right, I said 140 point differential between Nico and Puka, just about between Nico and the wide receiver. Let's see, who's this guy here? Between Nico and the wide receiver 15, so 8 slots, there was only a 26-point differential. So a lot of these guys finished in the same kind of area. Courtland Sutton, it felt worse than what it was when he finished at the end of the day, but it was Bo Nix not throwing a ton of touchdowns. And Bo Nix just felt meh this year. He felt meh. The defense was the one that carried, so they've just ran an offense that worked to win games, right? The defense carried them this season. Courtland Sutton, it'll be really interesting to see where he goes next year. You can't give him a round 2 tag. This is the first guy I absolutely can't. Devontae Adams, sure, maybe. A.J. Brown, sure. Like, if you want to, sure, round 2. But Courtland Sutton's the first guy where I'm like, he's got to be outside the top 2 rounds. I think even round 4 is reasonable. But now that we're hitting these guys who all finished pretty close in terms of points and where they ended up, Courtland Sutton's going to be interesting when it comes to the rankings. I feel like the top 9, it was like, okay, they all deserve to be there. It feels pretty good to have those guys there. But what do you do with Courtland Sutton? I don't know. I don't know how far he'll drop in terms of rankings. I'm actually really curious. Let me pull up right here my rankings from this last season. I'm really curious to see where I ended up having Courtland Sutton, kind of where he was going. I had him at 19. He was wide receiver 22 in ECR. So that's pretty big for him to jump up from 19 through 22 to get finished at wide receiver 10. So Courtland Sutton will be an interesting one. It feels gross. It feels gross to have him, but he will be the one there. He is getting a little older. I think he's not going to finish as high as 10 again, but good year, I guess, regardless. Unfortunate stinker in the championship, but if you had him in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, you were very happy with his production. So awesome to see Sutton finishing in the top 10, to be honest, but we'll have to see what kind of happens, especially, with Bo Nix too getting injured. We have to keep tabs on the injury, the surgery, everything going on with Bo Nix as well. But that's the top 10 for you right there. We got plenty of time, so I'll go over a couple more names. Wide receiver 11, a point behind Courtland Sutton, is Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, PPR machine this year. Had some more touchdowns. Can be very promising with Dart. Malik Neighbors will be back, though, so I don't know if I'd be taking Wan'Dale very high, but he could creep his way up to like a round 5 tag. I think that's still super early, but yeah, I mean, great year for Wan'Dale Robinson for an undrafted guy too. Unbelievable. Wide receiver 12, Zay Flowers, felt gross, felt awful. I cannot believe he finished that high. But he had a lot of games where he was just high floor. 14, 14, 12, 14, 11, 12, 11, 11. Just a lot of games within that range. So you never really won because of Zay Flowers, but you never really lost either. It'll be interesting to see what we want to do with him next year. Do they go get a guy like A.J. Brown or trade for a guy who could be more of a one? I don't know. Zay Flowers will be an interesting talk next year. Jameson Williams, wide receiver 13, awful start. Borderline droppable to start the year. I mean, it took him, what, let's see, boom, bust, boom, bust. So many busts in there. After the bye, it was week 9 and beyond. He had that one bust again with 0 points and only 5 in the championship, but he was unbelievable otherwise. 16, 23, 19, the 0, 26, 17, 26, 12, and then 5 in the championship. He was really, really good. Dan Campbell started calling the plays, and it started working out for them. They started chucking it to him. They started getting the ball, which actually hurt Amon-Ra St. Brown a little bit. So that could be another story where it's like, do we want to drop Amon-Ra a little bit? I wouldn't fault you for it if you trust in JMO to take the next step again. But yeah, JMO, I mean, it was a great end to the year, and it turned out you were very happy if you stayed patient. Trust the talent sometimes, trust the good offenses sometimes, and it can work out for you. Wide receiver 14, Stephon Diggs. There were a number of bad games. He wasn't on the field a whole bunch, but there were a number of games where they just hyper-targeted him, and he was unbelievable. He may not be a Patriot next year. We will see. If he is, kind of got to anticipate the same thing where you don't know when you can trust him and when you can't. So for him to be the wide receiver, what is this, 13, 14? Wide receiver 14, I mean, that's crazy. He's a top-end wide receiver too, and you don't know when you can trust him. So it feels like with the wide receivers so far, right, the last couple I've named, they're like wild cards. And then if you had a top 2, 3, 4, 5 guy, you were very, very happy. But outside of that, it's almost like it got really scary from there. The wide receiver 15 was Tet McMillan, another one. Very, very up and down. Do you trust Bryce Young? I mean, where's Tet going to go next year? He's going to be a sophomore. He was a rookie this past year, so it was a good season. It wasn't great, but it was a good season. So it'll be interesting to see what we do there. Wide receiver 16, Michael Wilson. Unbelievable second half. I mean, this is what we hoped Marv would be, right? But what's going to happen? Mike LaFleur coming in, head coach. What are they going to do at quarterback? What are you going to run for an offense? I mean, Trey McBride's still there. Do they say, hey, Michael Wilson, you were great. Slot in at the wide receiver 2 for us permanently. You're going to be the third guy behind Trey McBride and Marv. I don't know. That's going to be a real, real interesting talk. But what a end to the season for Michael Wilson. That was really awesome to see, honestly. So, yeah, that'll be a fun talk this offseason. CeeDee Lamb comes in at wide receiver 17. He missed a couple games. He only played 13. So you can factor that in a little bit. He still averaged a decent amount, which would have put him as a top 10 wide receiver. So in terms of average, he played like a top 10 guy. He'll be another top 2 round pick once again, whether Pickens is there or not. I think both of them could thrive in this offense as we saw this year. Number 18, Michael Pittman Jr. It was a solid year, and then, you saw the drop-off for the offense as a whole once Daniel Jones left. Honestly, he might have some sleeper value. If Daniel Jones comes back, we see that he's healthy. Say Alec Pierce walks, too, in free agency. I mean, Pittman will be the guy. Daniel Jones liked him, too. I think people just don't like Michael Pittman. Nobody liked him this year. He was a very late-round draft pick, and if you took him, you were happy with him at the end of the day. It wasn't a great end of the season, like I said, without Daniel Jones. But to start the year with him, he was very, very productive. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see just how far off people are. I think I'm going to have him a little bit higher than the public will. I mean, he was like a wide receiver 40-something, real low this year. But this upcoming year, I'm curious to see if he even goes top 24. I could very well see him going in the 30s and the public being like, yeah, Michael Pittman, I don't like him. But as long as Daniel Jones is there, I think I'm going to be in as a top 24 guy for Michael Pittman. Where are we at? Wide receiver 19, Jalen Waddle. Um, Good year for the most part. It looked better with Tua than with Ewers towards the end of the year, and it certainly looked better once certainly looked better once Tyreek Hill went off the field with his injury. Um, I mean, Jalen Waddle is going to be interesting. Does Tyreek Hill return? Who's the quarterback there for the Dolphins? Either way, it'll be interesting to see if they bring anybody in, what they do at the wide receiver position. But if Jalen Waddle's the guy again and there's competent quarterback play that's not Quinn Ewers, I think he could be a pretty good value next year in drafts. And lastly, wide receiver 20, Mecca Egbuka. Great start, horrible ending. He just fell off a cliff. I mean, he was supposed to be the rookie of the year for some time, and those first 5 weeks were unbelievable. And after that, he touched double digits twice, one being only 10 points. It's going to be tough to really gauge what we do with Emeka Egbuka next year. So, interesting name there. Will Mike Evans return? How's Baker going to do next season? Where's Godwin going to be? Will he be a factor here? What are they going to do in the draft? What are they going to do in free agency? It'll be an interesting name regardless. Another name to bring up, Justin Jefferson. I mean, he played all 16 games and finished at wide receiver 26. It was a rough year. He couldn't overcome the bad quarterback play, unfortunately. But you almost, even if J.J. McCarthy is there again, you almost got to draft him pretty high, like round 2, round 3, honestly. It's Justin Jefferson. Like, the talent is there. I hope J.J. is not there, or at least he can make the jump to be a better quarterback, but man, he's going to be one of those picks where you don't like it, but you got to take it because it's Justin Jefferson. He could be, at any point, the best wide receiver in football. So very, very disappointing year for him, but regardless, you gotta still take him pretty high. Any other names to mention? Let's see. Drake London finished at wide receiver 8 in points per game, only 11 games played, but he was great for some time. It'll be interesting once again to see what they do with the quarterback position. It seems like they're releasing Kirk Cousins and they're trusting Penix, but I don't know about that. We'll see. Maybe Kyle Pitts leaves in free agency, which means even more targets for Drake London. But the targets are there. He's going to be a top 12 pick again at the wide receiver position specifically. He could be a round 2 pick, that's fine. But he should be a very high pick once again. Another couple names to mention. Malik Neighbors only played 4 games, but he had a 37-point outing in one of those. Garrett Wilson, he should be fun with Dart. He should be really fun with Dart, Malik Neighbors. So he may be getting drafted pretty highly again in terms of wide receivers. Garrett Wilson, 7 games played, finished at wide receiver 14 in points per game. So he should be pretty fun as well. It's going to be real interesting to see where some of these guys who were injured could go. I mean, there's nobody in New York. So he's not going to have target competition. It's just going to be who's the quarterback, right? So we'll see. Maybe, I doubt they go quarterback at 2. There's nobody behind Fernando Mendoza that's worth drafting at 2. So they'll probably go best player available. But maybe they bring in Malik Willis in free agency. Maybe they go trade for Kyler Murray. We don't know. So it'll be interesting. Keep a watch on that. That'll be really important. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. We'll keep it a very quick episode today. I'll do the tight ends in the next episode. So you'll see me again for the tight ends. Will probably be myself once again. And if I have any news at that point, I will absolutely share it. But nothing really fancy for today. So hope y'all enjoyed. See y'all in the next video. Peace.